But don't you see it doesn't make sense. That's why it's funny. It's funny because it doesn't make sense. Because, yeah, when people say it's something slipped between the cracks. I'm always hearing this. People are always saying, oh, it must have slipped between the cracks. What? See, between the cracks is the floorboards. So it wouldn't slip between the cracks. It would land between the... But everybody says it would. That's why it's funny. Oh, hello and welcome all you mask collectors and cosplayers and monster lovers and Halloween fanatics to the Library of Horror Hotel, where it's once again time for Creepy Cheapies with Dr. Lady. I'm Joe Schlabotnik, and speaking of creepy, today's recommendation is a mask based on a creepypasta, which, if you don't know, creepypastas are online horror stories. I hesitate to call them stories because they're not exactly necessarily coherent as a story ought to be. They're sort of situational vignettes. Remember the situational vignettes? Remember when they used to open for the Turk Murphy Jazz Band? They're sort of situations. They're little scary scenarios, and they're sort of modern day attempts to create internet themed and internet era urban myths, urban legends. So therefore they don't need as much internal logic and as much complexity of thought and design as does a novel or a movie script or a TV script. They just need to be creepy. So I kind of like the creepypastas, and I cut them some slack for not making any sense, because I think that's okay for them not to make sense in the way the movie does, because they're just those creepy little things that you heard and it happened to a friend of a friend of a friend. Anyway, okay. Today's mask is so creepy. How creepy is it? I thought you'd never ask. It's so creepy. I love this mask. This is super creepy. It's Jeff the Killer. Now, this particular mask also sometimes just sold as the Killer, or Jay the Killer, not J-A-Y like Jay and Silent Bob or Jay Leno. No, just the letter J, period. Jay the Killer, okay? And this particular version is my favorite of the ones I've seen, and I've seen several versions of the Jeff the Killer character. This one is from Ghoulish Productions, and it came out, what year did you, oh, he doesn't remember. It's hard to get a straight answer out of this guy, you know. 2016? 17? Somewhere in there. He's been out for a while anyway. And here's how creepy he is, and how cursed Jeff the Killer is, and how intense the curse is associated with this character. He's so cursed and creepy that the first time I attempted to put him on Creepy Cheapies was not fated to happen, you see, because several months ago this episode would have gone live or gone online, and you would have seen it several months ago, but unfortunately, owing to an unfortunate incident of computer crashery, a number of intended Creepy Cheapies episodes that I have recorded, as I'm doing right now, were lost and were not able to be brought to fruition and broadcast and shared with you, the living. So you may have missed some Creepy Cheapies there that would have happened, and they didn't happen, and one of those was Jeff the Killer. And you know, there were others that were also lost at that same time before they could be edited and put online and so forth, but I think he's the one behind it. I think it was the Jeff the Killer curse that was responsible for the destruction of take one of the episode devoted to this particular mask some months ago. Now, again, if you don't know, Jeff the Killer is one of the Creepypasta originals, one of the early Creepypasta characters, along with Slender Man and Ted the Caver and some of those. And what I was saying about them not having to make sense, you know, I think in a movie it takes away from it. In a movie or a book or a TV show, it really distracts and brings the level of the thing down if it doesn't have good internal logic you know, doesn't hold up as a plot. You know, it's lazy writing usually. But the creepypastas, I cut them some slack because they're different, because they're written by different people. And over time, different people add to the mythology and the continuing series of horror adventures and stories about the creepypasta characters. And they make up their own versions of it. And you know, I don't like it when somebody makes up their own version of a popular movie character so much, because no, I know that's not really something that ever happened to Darth Vader, or something that ever happened to, you know, Mr. Spock, or you know, don't tell me, oh, this is my movie about Michael Myers, and in my version Michael Myers is a black woman who only speaks Chinese and only kills people whose names begin with a Q. And that, you know, that, no, that's not, I know who Michael Myers is, and he's the guy in the white mask. So you can't make up too much. You can't go too far astray from what's already established. But in the case of the creepypastas, they're more like those stories that everybody hears a slightly different version of. Like, you know, there are old stories about, oh, the haunted graveyard, and if you touch two tombstones at the same time and say something or do something or under the right conditions, something terrible will happen. But everybody heard a different version of it. And if you get a carload of your friends together, one of them will have heard, in the case of what I just said, you know, maybe one guy heard that it has to be at the stroke of midnight, and maybe another guy heard that it has to be on Halloween night, and maybe another guy heard that it has to be during a full moon in a month with a Y in it. Or everybody will have heard a little different version, just like the outcome will be different. Maybe one person heard that if you touch the two tombstones at midnight on Friday the 13th, maybe you know, a ghost will appear, or the person who's buried there will come back to life, or a demon will come out and get you, or something. Or maybe you'll become immortal, or maybe you'll get $1 million the next day, or you know, something. But everybody hears different versions of them, and I think that discontinuity sort of works in the case of the creepypasta stories, because it kind of gives them that murky uncertainty that real or imagined urban myths and urban legends have, you know. So there's some leeway there. As for Jeff's story, it changes, but it is generally agreed, okay, the original story and the supporting bits and pieces are generally in agreement on the fact that Jeff was a human being at one point, and he was bullied by the kids at school. Okay, who wasn't? Who among us was not bullied in school? But it got out of hand in the case of Jeff, who, like many other people, was named Jeff. And eventually it led to various types of confrontations with ugly violence and things turning really bad. And well, you know, even as I'm talking about it, doesn't it kind of make you feel creepy? Doesn't it make you feel like this is a creepypasta happening to you? Doesn't it make you feel like everything's all grainy and dark and almost black and white, really low in color, and there are scary sounds in the background? Can't you almost see that grainy, flickery, black and white kind of look that has become cheap horror movie shorthand for scary? And some of you right now, the younger people watching this, are saying, what did he say? Shorthand. What is that? Well, shorthand was another urban legend. Shorthand was an escaped murderer with a really small hook on his right. Never mind. Jeff, anyway, in most versions of the story, Jeff ended up set on fire, and as you can tell, he looks like somebody whose face was set on fire. Yeah, and he either fell into some bleach or some gasoline or something, and it's always slightly different, always entirely implausible and not what really would happen. But that's part of what's creepy about it, kids. Okay, and Jeff the Killer, I believe, my theory is that the reason the bullies picked on him so much in school and drove him to insanity and murder is because he was born with absolutely no nose. And that would be hard on a kid going through school, you know. You think the kids picked on you for whatever was different about you when you've got absolutely no nose, okay? Well, for one thing, he probably heard that stupid joke about, you know, Jeff's got no nose. How does he smell? Terrible. Yeah, he probably heard that enough times. That alone would have driven him crazy, but then he had the additional misfortune to have his face set on fire, and then somebody tried to put it out with an object that was also on fire. And that's not going to work out, you know. So poor Jeff went crazy and became either a serial killer or a ghost of a killer, or both, sort of a Freddy Krueger-like entity, and he likes to tell people to go to sleep, which is really unfair if you think about it. He should tell you not to go to sleep, but he tells people go to sleep, and then if you do, he can get you, and he'll kill you. So he's nuts, and he kills people for no good reason in most versions of the story. If you're going to wear him at Halloween, and I think this would be really scary in a haunted house, or especially in a haunted forest or a haunted hayride situation, if you could have Jeff come out of the bushes, out of the trees, like he's looking at people on the hay wagon or whatever it is, you know, it could be really scary with the Ghoulish Productions mask, which I've seen sell as cheaply as around 30 bucks. Wow, which is pretty amazing. And I will finally get around to this, by the way. The hair is rooted in. I think you can see that. It's sewn right into the rubber, so you can wear it around, and you know, it flops around and it won't fall off, and it always looks good, and it looks like real hair. And I like this. They have been so thoughtful at Ghoulish Productions that they put a little black paint on the top here. And I didn't do this. It came that way. There's some black there, which is nice because then, you know, if it does flop around a little, at least from the front, you don't see the white of the face showing through the hair. It just looks like he's got a full head of black hair. And being a young guy, Jeff probably has decently thick hair, unlike some of us older guys who are really just jealous. And that's sad when you're jealous of Jeff the Killer's good looks, but these things happen in the world of monsters, people. So I recommend, if you're going to scare people at the haunted house, or just scare the trick-or-treaters or some such, or if you just want to use it as a Halloween decoration, how creepy would this be on a mannequin in your window, like peeking out a curtain and then a little spooky light on him? Wouldn't that be great? That would be very creepy. With the way they painted these eyes and everything. Yeah, good creepy one. I believe he usually wears a white hoodie, or light gray hoodie, so that's something easy to find, so you don't have to come up with a really expensive costume for him. Other than that, I think he can kill people with whatever you want to give him by way of a weapon or something to be scary. But anyway, the very scary $35 Ghoulish Productions Jeff the Killer mask. And you know, if this video gets destroyed before it goes online, I'm not going to do this mask a third time.